Good day, everyone. Welcome to another session on research methods. Today, we will talk about the requirements of writing the last chapter of the UL prescribed report. The last chapter, or chapter 5, has for its title Summary, Conclusion, and Recommendation. So, on that note, we would be discussing in this particular video lecture the procedures and guidelines in the preparation of the different parts of chapter 5. So we begin with the summary. So what will be the contents of this section of the fifth chapter? So this part of the chapter will discuss the research problem and specific subproblems, hypotheses, and other details of the study, such as research design, the instruments, including validation and test of reliability, and so on and so forth. Note that the summary of the study, okay, uh, should be as brief as possible so that they will not duplicate chapter 1 and chapter 3 of the study. So the summary is very important. It is essential as a benchmark in preparation uh, for the writing of the findings, conclusions, and recommendations for systematic, logical, and consistent results. So this is a general reminder that the writing of the summary should be as brief as possible. Now we move on to the next. This will be for the findings of the study. The findings of the study, okay, are presented, discussed, and analyzed in Chapter 4, including their implications and relationships or differences with reviewed literature in Chapter 2, or what I have mentioned in our previous discussions or lectures regarding cross references or corroborations. So, what we will have to reflect under findings of this study are the significant or salient findings that we have in relation to the subproblems as indicated in the statement of the problem. So, in the findings of the study, only the specific results are included, that is, for both qualitative and quantitative, and without any explanations or reasons. Further, the findings of the study are presented as they were organized and categorized in the specific subproblems of the study. So there must be a one-on-one correspondence such that each subproblem has a specific sets of findings. Therefore, if you have a part of your statement of the problem three specific questions or subproblems, then therefore there will be three sets, okay, of findings, okay, that you will have under this particular section of the fifth chapter. So you will need to avoid irrelevant, indirect, or unnecessary findings because they were carefully, okay, treated in the interpretation of data. Okay, so that's for the findings of the study. So in addition, okay, uh, findings must be written in the past tense form. Okay? So you will need to state descriptive and qualitative findings if necessary, and it is important that we be guided by this uh, in the writing of your uh, findings of the study. So you may consider the example shown on the screen. Number one, the status of human resources was very much in educational qualifications, while much along professional performance, workload, rank, and tenure, and faculty development. The average mean value was 3.32, which is equivalent to much. Okay, so this is an example of the set of findings related to a specific subproblem. Now we move on to conclusions. So, conclusions to begin with should address your main problem statement. So, if in the findings you had it on the basis of the specific problems, the conclusions or the generalizations that you will formulate should be with reference to the main problem statement. So conclusions must be written in the present tense, and they are stated based on the findings of the study. So you will have it on the basis of the answer to the specific problems, the generalization that you will formulate or that you will draw. Okay, so you will have it drawn from the set of findings. So there is a need for careful analysis in identifying them so that they will not appear as findings or recommendations. That's one of the more common mistakes of researchers to have part of conclusions, extension of findings, or recommendations. So always remember that conclusion is for purposes of generalization of the findings of the study. It will not be uh, an extension of your discussion of findings nor recommendations. So the conclusions are made in a general statements that will reflect the results of the study. So if there are five or three specific problems, so there should also be five conclusions. If there are subtopics under one subproblem, you may or may not present them separately. You can have a comprehensive discussion uh, to uh, summarize everything. You can lump them in one conclusion if applicable. So let's take the case of this example. Remember the findings earlier, okay? The example that we have given, the status of human resources was very much and so on and so forth. So if this is for your findings, how do we then draw the conclusions? So we can perhaps conclude that the conventional method of teaching is equally effective as a cooperative learning strategy in teaching mathematics. Okay, so note that that what you have mentioned under findings are not repeated part of the conclusion, nor okay provide sort of a recommendation. Okay, so let's go back. The status of human resources was very much in educational qualifications, while much along professional performance. And then for conclusion, you have this. So the conventional method of teaching is equally effective as a cooperative learning strategy in teaching mathematics. So this particular study, by the way, has to do with determining the effectiveness of the conventional vis-a-vis the cooperative learning strategy in teaching mathematics in order to improve the performance of the students. So it was found out that the conventional method, okay, based on the findings, now is equally effective, right? So that's how you'll have to draw your conclusion. So moreover, the conventional and cooperative learning methods are effective in teaching mathematics. So this is the appropriate conclusion if the achievement scores of the two groups of respondents were either good or very good. If not, then you revise your conclusion. Okay, so as earlier mentioned, this study is all about determining the effectiveness of two methods. The first is the conventional, and the other we have the cooperative learning in teaching mathematics. Okay, so this is for the conclusion. After the conclusion, now you're ready for your recommendations. So the recommendations of the study are based on the findings and conclusions. So you will need to reckon it with the findings and the conclusions, where the number of findings and conclusions must also be the number of recommendations as much as possible. However, you will note that the part of your statement of the problem, particularly for the specific problems, um, is a question, okay, that will lead you to uh, the proposal of a measure or an action, and therefore it will already be in the form of answer to subproblem number three for most of your recommendations. So how will that be? Therefore, you will only have it part of your recommendations that try out, okay, of the proposed measures or the proposed action that you have discussed in the fourth chapter in relation to that sub problem on what measures can be proposed to improve this and that. Okay, so that will form part of the recommendation. So recommendation that will uh, suggest for the tryout of the proposed measures that you have discussed in the fourth chapter. So you will need not repeat what you had for set of proposed measures, okay, under recommendations. Okay, so the researcher may lump in this set of proposed measures or action plan in one paragraph if the recommendation made, okay, in one sum problem is applicable to the others. Okay. So the recommendations must be specific and point out the direct agency or people involved, like administrators, teachers, students, and researchers for possible future action. So they must be careful. They must be carefully stated so that they will not appear as the importance of the study. Remember that in the first chapter you have, okay, that section on significance of the study, where you as well have identified different sectors or agencies or organizations that will benefit from this study. So you have to be very extra careful in stating your recommendations so that it will not appear uh, as uh, as importance of the study. Okay, so here's one example. So the recommendations are lumped as one based on the findings and conclusions. So take a look at this. The researcher determined the status and strengths and weaknesses of a state college to evolve a five-year development plan. So it is assumed that the five-year development plan, was part and parcel of the fourth chapter and in response to one of the sub problems. Okay. So after the findings and conclusions are made, the recommendation may be stated as follows. So the proposed development plan should be presented to the Board of Trustees for further evaluation. But you have to be very careful in the wording of your recommendations, as such that it will not sound too imposing. Okay? You will have it in the form of proposal, uh, more than, okay, an imposition. Okay, so you have to uh, be as well uh, careful, okay, in the way you frame your recommendations. So the dean will shall endorse the provisions of the development plan, taking into consideration the findings forms such evaluation, which could serve as a database for the immediate need of a development plan to be adopted and implemented to ensure quality growth and development of the college. Okay, so this could be an extension of the earlier mentioned recommendation. So, and an impact evaluation should be conducted at the end of the 5-year period, and the recommendations can be presented one by one with the findings of the study. So here's another one. So suppose the findings is in this manner, in the manner as follows rather. So the English teacher respondents rarely use instructional materials and were not so competent in the use of different methods and approaches, strategies, and techniques in teaching the language. So, what could be a recommendation? So, administrators should encourage English teachers to join seminars and other professional organizations to improve their competencies in teaching, particularly in the use and preparation of instructional materials. Right? So, English teachers should vary their methods, approaches, strategies, and techniques to suit their students' needs. They should be given sufficient time to find out what techniques are most appropriate for each activity. Okay, so these are examples for recommendations, and I hope that you will have it okay, in the most comprehensive way. The recommendations that you will put across, okay, part of the fifth chapter. All right. Again, for recommendation, if you have part of the set of sub problems, one that will elicit proposed measure or similar actions like uh, action plan or development plan for that matter. So you will need not repeat what you have for discussion, okay, under chapter 4, but just to recommend for the tryout, and that you will recommend that it will be presented for approval or consideration by the approving authority in the organization. Okay? Or and of course, do not forget part of the recommendation: conduct of parallel or further studies that will that in the spirit of replication in order to be able uh, to confirm rather, not conform, okay, confirm the results of the study. Or maybe it could be otherwise. Okay, so further studies, okay, or parallel studies are recommended as well. Okay, okay, so that will be for the fifth chapter. I hope that this video lecture will guide you through in the writing of the last chapter of the UL prescribed report. So that will be all for today. Thank you, everyone. God bless and keep safe.